He hane washte chue.
Hey, honey, wash day. I'm bet to wash day to all of you, all the listeners out there on this cold day. We call it Champopo month of February. But anyway, that's one of the words of one of our months. Champopo is February. So let me get started with a short prayer here, and today's topic is going to be, again, the third portion of Walking in Two Worlds. But this one, I want to focus on the mental aspect of living in two worlds. It's been kind of a daily struggle for me mentally. So we'll talk about that. But first of all, let's say a little prayer. Ampetule Tonkashila, Wopila Tanka Epre, Makasidonia, Wocheke Iawa, Ho Kuzana, Ho Tehia Umsechina, Ho Kakijab. Every day we suffer, and there's some people that are sick, and there's some people that are struggling. Hina Tonkashila, I send my prayers to them. Naha Tonkashila Taku eprekte le na oyan kabihina takun eta wiuk jana uspeok de tonkashila. For all those that are listening to what I have to say, let them think about it and let them learn from what I say. It is not teaching them my way, but to listen to what I have to say, because we all learn from each other. Oh tonkashila ambedu le pio wopila epre. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I really have thought about this, actually, and I really believe this, that my ancestors bring some of these thoughts into my mind, or even the stories that I had forgotten. And I was just telling Barbara, I said, I had a Grandma George Porthunder's sister. Her name was Mercy Porthunder. And, I just loved her to death because, she taught me a lot of things, or told me a lot of things that I didn't want to listen to in my younger days. But she even came into my dream. And that was amazing. But I think, the topics of talk shows lately have been about ancestors, and I think they do keep in touch with us somehow to keep our minds going and to live the way we're supposed to, bring in the awareness and the knowledge to our younger generation. But I wanted to go ahead and talk about a little bit of what had happened here as I was thinking about the part of growing up and learning a lot from my family, my father and my grandparents and stuff. But the funny thing about it is, Grandma Mercy came into my dream, and it was really kind of funny because she told me in Indian, she said, remember those papers that your dad gave you? And I couldn't think about it, because I really try to play into what I hear or what I dream about. And I was thinking about that, and I said, what kind of papers, what kind of message is she trying to give me? And it turned out, way back in 1968, my father used to spend a lot of time with Ben Black Elk, and I don't know if a lot of you people know about Ben Black Elk, but he used to sit up at Mount Rushmore. He was the fifth base of Mount Rushmore. But there was a time when I was going into, I knew I was preparing myself for college, and Ben Black Elk gave some papers to my dad, and it was about a meeting that he was involved in 1968 by an institute, and all I can remember, because I had read the papers, and it was from a Dr. Winkler was his name, and the only reason why I remember the name was Henry Winkler, Fonzie anyway. But in those papers, as I remember reading, there was professor from one institute somewhere out east. I think it was Pennsylvania, as I remember. He wanted to go ahead and talk about or to write a book or to learn, because he thought that he learned something from a Austrian philosopher of how the success of the white man in America was due to the intuitive wisdom of the American Indians. So he got that concept and ended up wanting to do a research on how we raised, the Native Americans raised their children, because they had good values, good wisdom, and they lived with the laws of nature. So anyway, that's what kind of led me to thinking about this paper and what I had read there. And it's quite interesting, because that kind of led me into growing up. And I remember my dad saying to me at one time, after giving me those papers, he said, keep these, read these. He said, these are something that you're going to use when you're going to college. You're going to learn something from it. Well, those papers, I know I kind of delved into them a bit, but I don't remember a lot of the context. I just remember some of it. But they went in the flood in 1997. 1972 was when they had the flood in South Dakota. So this is just kind of like a little vivid memory of what was written. But my father said at that time, he said, there's two great periods in our lives, and it's as children. And he said one of them is birth. We live in the innocence of life during that time. And he said the second part of his adolescence is when impurity occurs, as in his Indian way. He said, "Taku shitna washtehina unkluspepu, uspenichdapo," as what he said was, you learn about the good and bad. You know it then, so you lose your innocence of the purity. And that kind of led me up to knowing, that the unseen and the mysticism of how our ancestors come to us as children, because we're pure, and I really think about that. So anyway, with that, I was remembering, but when he talked about the adolescent period, I think that's when the downfall of living in two worlds really brought a lot of confusion and chaos in my mental stage, because we were exposed to a different foreign environment to the dominant society, and the way that they say we were supposed to live, especially from the boarding school. It was like everything that we did, was wrong, or we weren't doing it the right way, and it really got me to thinking. So in today's world right now, every day I think I get pressured by Iktomi. Iktomi is our trickster, is our trickster. We use Iktomi as our ego part of us. And so with that, I get pressured every day. I think I feel with guilt every day, because as I wake up and I'm living in the modern world out here, although I know a lot of things of our way that we believe in, the mores, the taboos and laws of our way of life, I'm out here and I'm going strong with the dominant society, not forgetting, I forget to pray in the mornings. I forget to put food out for our ancestors, because those are some of the things that we're supposed to do. We're supposed to always remember our ancestors. So that was just a little example of why I say I live with guilt all the time. I live with guilt on daily basis, just when I think about I want to look nice, I want to curl my hair, I want to perm my hair, but that's not the way we were taught this to say, because Grandma Mercy was the one that said, "Oh, Takoja, don't curl your hair." Actually, I think I was thinking about dyeing my hair at that one time, and she said, "Takoja, you can't do that. You're not going to get into heaven, So think about some of those things that they believe in, and that hold strong to your own values.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that I think the mental aspect of my daily struggles is because of the way I dress. Do I want to dress? Do I want to look nice? And of course, with the evolution, the forever evolving of our daily lives, we stay in mass confusion for some of us that lived in a different culture, and for some of us that believe in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Chue, how do you, and when you're talking about this, it brings up something that seems to be a really hot topic lately, or at least from where I am, is the word cultural appropriation. Those words. What does that mean to you? Because you do walk in both worlds.
Cultural appropriation. I hear that, and I hear a lot of this decolonization lately. And to me, I guess when they talk about cultural appropriation, is basically that. I guess this is even difficult too, because when you're living on a reservation, it's a totally different meaning from when you're living out here, because it's hard for you to follow it. The cultural appropriation is how the way you're supposed to live, the way it was,
mm-hmm.
and the way you practice it. The true meaning of it.
Uh-huh.
The true meaning of your life. That's what it means to me.
Thank you.
And I think that's very hard, and I think this is basically where I'm at right now, is when I live out here, it's totally different. I could be that chameleon and live a culturated way out here, but when I go back to some of the ceremonies, again, that's a mental thing that I have to kind of change when I get back into that ceremonial mode.
Uh-huh.
So it really is basically teetering on the fence post most time, or teetering on the fence is what they call it, is either way you could fall.
Well,
and
I think
what I daily.
What you're talking about in your shows these days is so important, because I just look here in West Michigan, the number of people who are tribally enrolled, but to look at them you would never know, based on our judgments and what we feel a Native American person should look like. They don't necessarily look like we project Native American people to look like, and yet they honor that ancestry first and foremost. And I know that sometimes, because of somebody's ignorance about blood quantum or what have you, they are accused of cultural appropriation, wearing Native American things that they shouldn't be wearing, attending ceremonies that they shouldn't be attending, based on who the cultural appropriation. Does that make sense to you, Chue?
Yes, I understand fully, but you know what? This is a big learning situation for most of us, and I learned. I don't think that people understand DNA.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know about genetics, how it passes on, and we all should know. But I think a lot of people that do think that way, when they negate, who somebody is, and who is part Indian. And I know there's a big uproar with one of the congressional ladies, that claims she was Native American. Sometimes I think one of the things that we have to understand is it goes back to judgment. Why do we judge other people when we don't know? Wilma Mankiller had said, if you have one drop of blood, you're Native.
Mm-hmm.
You're Indian. It doesn't matter about blood quantum,
mm-hmm.
because as I know from genetics from way back, there was intermarriages, there was a lot, and even with my own family, I can say we're pretty much Heinz 57 with my children.
And they're all beautiful.
Yeah, and we don't look native. I mean, I'm sure I'm the only one that looks native in my family right now because I've got grandchildren that are Hispanic. They're German. They're Korean. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and this is why it's so important for me to talk about some of these things.
It is.
Because it is going to be difficult for them to acknowledge or to have people acknowledge that they're native. And
Yes.
they have every right. They have every right to know about the ceremonies, and this is some of the things that we contend with out here, even with our own people. Just because we live out here, and I think I mentioned we're called Apple Indians. We're not readily accepted just because we live out here off of the reservation.
Where does that term come from, Chue, Apple Indian?
Well, Apple Indian is we're red on the outside and white on the inside. We
Gotcha.
have a lot of white values.
Okay.
And that brings me to knowing, like I said, you know, about the guilt. You think about the child rearing of the way it was, and then you have child experts that tell you, no, this is not the right way, you know. And I remember I'll give you an example. Way back when I was young, and I could see my cousins, you know, they didn't allow the women to breastfeed their children. That was wrong. That they had to use formula. Well, who could afford formula? And so the 4-H came in and ended up giving them a recipe for evaporated milk with Karo syrup in it. And look what it has done to a lot of people.
Oh, my
because of that,
gosh.
a lot of people have diabetes.
Right.
So every aspect of saying this is you're doing it wrong has been part of my life. You know, growing up, you know, at the boarding school and everything that I learned, which I thought was a good life, you know, and then you find out that it's really not a good life, you know, and so you have a lot of questions and you wonder, you know, and then you feel guilty because you're doing something else aside from what the dominant society tells you to do, compared to knowing that, you know, we stand with the natural laws of the universe or creation.
Right. Right. That's why I think this show, well, for a lot of reasons, I feel that your show is important because you're speaking to people that really are very thirsty for somebody to say to them, it's okay to live in both worlds because that's the world we're living in. And here's how we can best do or be in both worlds and still acknowledging our ancestry and our spiritual longings and our religious longings.
Well, I think for most people, again, we didn't know about mental health. You know, I guess the way that we grew up was through ceremonial. Everything was we cleansed ourselves, and that was a way of healing, you know. And then nowadays, if you really look at it, we don't really have, there's really no coping skills for our young ones. We haven't really taught because they're kind of like in limbo right now. They know, they look at themselves as Native American people, and they know that they have a lineage of a good life or the way it used to be, but yet when they're exposed to the dominant society and the pressures of it, you know, they don't have no coping skills.
Right.
Well, for most of us elders, geez, I call myself an elder.
You are an elder.
But anyway, what I think about it is, you know, if it wasn't for our ceremonies and our prayers, a lot of us probably, you know, would have been lost. But we hang on to that spirituality of faith, hope, you know, because again, it goes back, it's very deep-seated to know as women, we were chosen to be life givers. And for some of us that take it to heart, we struggle. We try to stay strong for our younger generation, and we try to teach, you know. And again, there's another exposure, you know, to the dominant society is they don't understand the matrilineal societies of some of the Native American tribes.
Right.
And,
True.
And so there was a good article that kind of brought to light, through all of histories, every time Native Americans were portrayed, there was no pictures of Native American women. It was always men, through dictionaries, through some of the National Geo, when it was all about the leaders, the chiefs, the great leaders.
Right.
But every great leader, behind that great leader was a woman.
Yes.
And it pretty much brought out the fact. This article was about the two ladies that recently got elected or selected to Congress anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really think about it, there's so many great women out there. Not only Native American, but a lot of other women that have not really been exposed.
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading a lot about the GPS, where it was a black woman. Thank her, because she was the one that founded, the GPS system, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the Dominant Society has kind of put a lot of us with the anguish, mental anguish of knowing that we are strong as individuals, as women, and as Indian people, or whatever race you are.
Mm-hmm.
You have to stay strong, and you have to look at your own ancestors, and also to look forward, what you're going to go ahead and provide.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you think, Chue, when we're talking about this show is really good. I'm really enjoying what you're sharing. Our ancestors, I believe, they speak through us and they speak to us. And sometimes I feel that some of them speak more loudly through us than others. And that, even though we're walking in the world of the physical world or dominant society versus our tribal society, etc., do you feel that sometimes, because we are walking in two worlds, many people in many cultures, that when our ancestors do come to us in our dreams or our intuitions or spontaneous memories, that we kind of brush it aside rather than sitting with it for a moment? And what do you advise somebody who feels as though their ancestors are reaching out to them? What would you say for them to do with that?
The unseen, the natural laws is, I think we're all capable. We're all able. We all have that gift to know that we have that connection from the past, because we need to pass it on to the future. And just like for me, the skepticism comes in, to think, why is this happening?
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you allow yourself to open yourself up, it will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, more so lately, it really has happened. I probably know from the past, but it was like, oh, they're just dreams,
Mm-hmm.
But I had dreams where my spirit guide had even came to me and gave me her name from way, way back, and I really didn't believe it. It was like, oh, this is just a dream.
Uh-huh.
But as I go and as I pray, I really, really do believe that they are bringing messages, and you have to allow yourself to be open to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's my belief. And I think more so, I think we all have that gift, because we need to go ahead and pass this from one generation to generation, because that's who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And so for some of us, maybe they don't believe us, and some of us, we really don't say anything. We
Right.
don't really talk about the things that happen to us, or the dreams, what are the messages, And the funny thing about it was, just speaking about my dream the other night, I dreamt about Ken. Well, in my dream, I was looking in through a window at some students sitting there, and somehow I was placed back at SIPI, where I used to work in Albuquerque. And I said, oh my God, this is pretty much the same. How is it going and everything? Well, some lady calls my name, and I turn. It was my fourth grade my fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Abbott. She was a black lady. She brought me a folded piece of paper. It was kind of like a certificate, and there was an eagle feather in there.
Ooh.
And some money. And I thought, what is this? What is this dream about? You know, I mean, what is the message? I get to work, and here I found out I got a raise.
Wow.
Well, she was telling me because of my prayer and everything, you know, I got a raise.
That's
the
wonderful.
way I look at it, you know. But the messages are so strong. We have to open ourselves up and really think, because, like, you know, you all talk about, and I've never really delved into dreams. I never really thought about them. But every dream that you have, the objects, the colors, everything, you have to put it together, and you get your message.
Right. Right.
So those are just some of the things that happen mentally. Is, you know, you pretty much falter, you know, now and then to say, oh, that was silly. But actually, when you really think about it, they're meant to be. I mean, everything is meant to be, you know, the way it is.
Right.
And then we didn't really tap in on the mental aspect of it, but it is a difficult road for me a lot of times, because every day, you know, like I feel guilty when I don't put food out, you know, when I forget to put food out for my ancestors, to thank them for another day, or, you know, thank you for protecting me or guiding me, you know. I feel guilty. I mean, a lot of times just knowing for the fact that I can't get home to the ceremonies, you know, and it's like I feel like I'm impure, you know, that I've just been bogged down with so much out here, the negative, I mean, energy, and I need to get home, you know, to purify myself, you know. Those are just some of the struggles that I have mentally a lot of times, you know, staying with prayer and knowing, you know, but the only thing is, through prayers, I've pretty much accepted, you know, I've accepted the way things are going to be.
So when you have those moments of guilt or feeling badly that you can't participate as much as you would like to, or be with your loved ones as much as you would like to, I know there are people that are listening to you right now, Del, that struggle with that as well. How do you reconcile that within yourself, and how do you lay that guilt aside?
Well, I've taken a lot of trips in my mind. I console myself just by putting my mental part of being home and thinking about it, you know, just the thought of, you know, thinking about sitting in that ENB, or, you know, the thoughts of it with prayers. And, you know, it subsides, you know, my guilt subsides, but I also understand that the higher power knows. You know, when I pray, they know that it's impossible at times to do what you want to do, and that's just the way it is.
Right. Thank you.
But that's, you know, my thought. I travel quite a bit in my mind every day. In fact, I was telling Leslie the other day, my daughter, I said, oh, God, you know, I said, I went to Utah, and I went up to Flathead Lake in just a few minutes, you know. But those are just some of the things I do to keep my sanity, I guess.
Right. Thank you for sharing that.
We need to do that. Yeah, and I think we need to do that. A lot of times we get bogged down with everyday struggles and the negativity. But, you know, your dream of travel to escape to that happy place is always a good thing, you know. And I do that quite a bit. So are we almost done here? I didn't even see.
We are. It's hard to believe.
But you know, I just wanted to mention a lot of my retreat in June is going to tap in, like I said, on the four aspects of our lives: the infant, the adolescent, the young adult, and the elder. And I really want to go ahead and let people know that, you know, the way it was, of the way we were taught, you know, like I said, from the age of 4, everything happens from the age of 4, you know, and all the rituals and what they stand for, all the symbology of why. And that really is so important, because that kind of keeps us grounded for me, it does, to remember some of those things and what they stand for.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'd be quite interesting. I think if we could go, and these are just tools that I'd like to say. I'm not gonna say these are the right ways or anything, but here's some tools that you could use, to alleviate all the burdens. Clean out your basket, every now and then with these tools.
Right. And for those of you that are listening and wondering, what is she talking about? Well, Del-Marie will be here in June of this year at the School of Sacred Studies. So if you check it out, schoolofsacredstudies.com, and click on the classes page, if you scroll down to June, you'll see exactly what she's talking about. And there are still a few spots open if you would like to participate in that weekend. And I can tell you that every time Del-Marie comes here, the weekend, the workshops are sold out completely. That Friday evening, we have added an event, and it's just going to be elder discussion. So she and my sister Barbara will both be at the School of Sacred Studies for Q&A, for questions, for story sharing, for having a time of being with elders and just being. And no curriculum, just being with these amazing women. They are amazing women, and I get to say that. So.
And I wanted to add to that, for those of you that may be there, please start looking for that stone that's going to call you, or that is calling you to bring to the retreat.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Wopila chue.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Have a good day, and Ake Toksha. We never say goodbye, but sometimes I will say bye. But today I'm going to say Toksha Ake.
Toksha Ake.
All righty.
Mm-hmm.